Folks, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. I have Sam Spade from the Midnight Devils. And I tell you, it's funny. I'm going to ask you a question here because it's one of these cheapies that tends to have you wind up on blabbermouth because every time I ask it, this podcast seems to get on there. You're a three-piece band. You guys use backing tracks? You straight ahead rock and roll band? What are you?
I'll tell you this. We do not in any way ever use backing tracks. We are a three-piece rock band that can hack it on stage, and I think for us it's the Antichrist. It's just so against what we believe in and what we do that I almost feel proud, and I'm so proud that there's nothing else on stage that's faked. There's nothing that's flown in. It's all live. And that, I think, is one of the coolest things about this band, is that with the crowd, we ebb and flow, and we can change our show at the drop of a hat because we don't use any of those tracks.
It seems to be the flavor of the month. Like, I was on Blabbermouth this morning. A friend of mine sent me, we were quoted. We did an interview with James Kotak there last month, and every so often they will quote an old article. And, before I found it was like 3 articles in a row about backing tracks, and we even had a thread where Eddie Trunk ranted on our page. Yeah, it just seems to be such a trendy topic right now, and I think we know why, because there's a band out there that there's the claim that they're using it, and what are your thoughts on it? I think I'm pretty clear, but you guys don't use it, but what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, that's such a great question. It's such a controversial question. I don't mind it. I really don't. If I'm going to see a band and if I can tell, then it kind of bugs me, right? If you do a good enough job to hide it and you're not using as many backing tracks, I'm really into it then. And I go, okay, it can enhance the sound. I understand why bands do it. It really does cover up some of those places that maybe you can't cover up, maybe that you need just a little help in certain areas. And I absolutely sometimes wish that we had those, but we don't. And I think that's the cool thing about the Midnight Devils, is that it's just live, loud, and right there, dangerous, right on the verge of going off the rails. That's really where the money's at for us. And that chaos, I think, can only be achieved without the backing tracks. The backing tracks are great and they sound good, but you're kind of stuck in that track every night. And every night it's going to be the same. Or if we play a song and we decide to extend it in that moment, we're going to extend it as long as we want. And really, that's the cool creative part on stage that makes it unique every single night.
I love that. And I mean, for me, I'm on the same page as you. I mean, it's a skill set, right? I mean, I'm a drummer. Yeah. And I did a show on Saturday where our keyboard player was away, so we had to use a couple of tracks for keyboards. And I know when you're in front of a crowd of people and you got the tracks going, the click tracks going, man, it's embarrassing if you got to turn it off. So it's a skill set. So we're on the same page. So you guys do this album, and and I don't want to say lucky, I'd say fortunate, because I mean, everything in music is networking. People don't understand it. You somehow, and you can maybe tell us a story of how you met Mr. Chips Enough, but you somehow get him to work on this album with you, and you guys get it out, you said, in July. How did that all come about?
We were fortunate enough where we had started doing some shows with Enough's Enough. Jimmy, our drummer, Jimmy Mess, lived with Chip. And if you can even imagine that whole scene of Jimmy and Chip, 2 of the most eccentric rock and roll characters, living together under one roof, smoking more reefer than you've ever seen. I've seen them together, and it's just the craziest thing. And they work so well together that they become friends. And eventually Chip was like, this is really cool. I really enjoy this music. It's different. It's new and fresh. Let me produce your record. And we were like, this is it. How are we going to take what we did in 2018 on our first debut record, which we did all by ourselves? How are we going to take it and step it up? How are we going to step up the game? We've really pushed ourselves touring. Now we got to push ourselves songwriting, sonically, and on an album. And that's what Chip did. He really, we laid it all on the line, and he brought out the best in us. And that's such a cool thing. I have so much respect for him as a songwriter. And now I have one of my best friends, and I can really call him for anything. If I need anything day or night, advice, life lessons, I can call Chip up, and he's taken us around the world. We went to Europe with him. It's just been this really cool thing where he ends up hanging out with us every night on the road. He'll at the end of the shows, he'll come find us and be like, let's go out and party, bro. You know, it's the coolest thing to kind of have this legend be almost the fourth member of the Midnight Devils.
You know, it's interesting because I've interviewed Matt Starr, who plays drums with Ace Frehley, and I know Matt really well. And Matt does he does coaching, and every so often he'll have this one little nugget, and he had one last week where basically he was talking about auditions, and the big thing was, you know, don't ask somebody you know outright for a gig, like, because, you know, if I go to you, Sam, and say, hey man, you know, put a word in for me, and it's like you're putting your name on the line by going back for me. And if I'm an idiot that shows up unprepared, it's not me that looks like the dummy, it's you. It must be pretty cool to know that you're that network, that somebody who of that caliber is that comfortable with you guys, that just he unequivocally says, yes, I'll do your record. Yes, I'll take you out to tour. Yes, I'll support you.
It's so cool. And sometimes I feel like it's like the pinch me moment. And I'll sit there and be like, I don't want to say anything stupid in front of him, and I don't want to be on my phone and be disrespectful to him. And it's like those moments. And doing that record, I was talking to like we were down in Nashville this weekend for the big podcast, the Rockin' Pod thing, and I was talking to one of the guys who wasn't Enough's Enough manager, and I said, you know, it was so cool when we were recording the single Highway 69. Donnie V actually walked into Chip's house. And they were hanging out, and we played him the song. He goes, that's impossible. It's impossible. They don't talk. And I go, man, I think I might have witnessed something very special with those legends and that Chicago sound, Enough's Enough, this power pop band. Sometimes I think to myself, like 16-year-old me would be freaking out that we're on tour with Enough's Enough. We're sharing a hotel room with Chip, or we're hanging with Pretty Boy Floyd. Like those moments aren't lost on me. And I really take those to be very special moments and special times where I want to bring out the best in everybody else and put the best on the line if we're going to be playing with those type of players.
Something that's really funny as you're mentioning this. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys back in the day, the whole, you know, the 6 degrees of separation. They had the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Did you ever hear about that? Yes. So this conversation that's going on right now is actually very interesting, because I know a gentleman by the name of Ralph Rasmussen, who's out on the West Coast, who actually knows Chip, who he's connected us, and I'm going to have him on the podcast. But you mentioned that expo that you were at this past weekend. Yeah. So I interviewed the gentleman that actually put it on, who came from another guy by the name of Dave Tedder, who's a PR guy out in Vegas. So I'm suddenly realizing, you know, I don't know, I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, so I'm on the east coast of Canada, man.
Okay.
You're in Lincoln, Nebraska. You know, we'll call it Middle America. Yet this old music business is pretty stinking small when you think about it, right? It's who you know, it's how you treat them, it's how you conduct your own affairs.
Agreed.
Determine success. Is that a fair statement?
I very, very agree with that. Yes.
And so, you know, it's interesting because there's all these people that you're mentioning that I've either met before or I know through whatever. And I want to talk to you about networking, and I want your opinion on networking, because if there's a message that I've always tried to get out to people, the worst thing you can do is you meet somebody and you automatically ask them for something, right? And we just talked about that a couple seconds ago. You got to earn your stripes. You got to earn the respect from somebody. How do you go about this when you meet somebody?
I'm just try to be genuine and try and be nice and be very respectful, but be open to those experiences and open to just soaking up wisdom. If I can gain some knowledge from these heroes, these guys that we had plastered on our walls when we were young, and now we're out on the road with them, if I can gain some knowledge, some insight, even if it's just like the littlest story, I feel like it's worth it. And I worked at this record shop here in Lincoln, and I'm telling you, like, the coolest things was guys coming in and leaning up on the counter telling me stories about when they would go see Kiss or go and see AC/DC. That's what I love. So if I can get my heroes to kind of just open up and start talking and just be kind of normal guys, like, that's the coolest thing ever to me. And then when stuff kind of goes bad or goes haywire and gets crazy, this weekend, like we met Ron Keel this weekend. I told everybody I'd tell this story. over and over again. So we walk back. We're at the expo. We walk backstage, and it's Ron Keel in the dressing room. And I go, "Oh man, that's cool, really cool." He goes, "Midnight Devils, right?" And I go, "Yes, I'm Sam." He goes, "I'm Ron Keel." I go, "It's so nice to finally meet you." And he goes, "I love what you're doing out there. You guys are just killing it. Now get the hell out of my dressing room." And he threw us out. I was like, I think we just got kicked out by Ron Keel for being in the Midnight Devils. This is so cool. This is incredible. You know, anybody else would have taken it as a big insult, but it was a great story just getting kicked out of Ron Keel's dressing room. So I really think it's about that interaction, about making those stories, and then taking those stories and putting them down into our songs, and really telling these big we're writing the stories as they happen, and chronicling them for whatever future generations. But we're out there living it.
It's funny because I had the opportunity to interview Ron on my birthday a couple of years ago, and I felt like I got probably one of the best lessons in how to self-promote in my entire life.
Really?
Because, well, he was sitting there and he was answering the question, but he'd always go into, so he'd be like, yeah, and so when we did this album in '86, but it's not like now where you can go to my Patreons and it was just constantly like this, right? But it was incredible. You didn't feel like the guy was punching you in the mouth to sell his stuff. It was a genuine, man, oh man, this guy's got an energy about what he does. It's infectious. It's awesome. And then I had the opportunity to get to know Dwayne Miller very well, Dwayne's a funny as hell guy who I've never seen a guy that owns more drum kits in my life than Dwayne Miller, right? So again, you're proving my point that this music business that we grew up on, that we think is just vast, is really pretty small.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I always feel that too when I get these guys, is like, and I know this is like the stupidest thing ever, but I'll get, say, Steve Summers from Pretty Boy Floyd, like I'll get his number and he'll text me and I'm like, am I really texting Steve Summers from Pretty Boy Floyd? Or like the guys from Junkyard, or just anybody like that, like these heroes. And I think the same thing. I go, I wouldn't believe it 20 years ago, but now it's kind of happening. And this world has become so small that now I have Steve Summers' phone number in my phone book, and I can call him whenever I want. How cool is that? It's awesome.
I've got a good friend of mine up here who he's very immersed in country music, and he's got a saying. It's basically just be a guy that everybody wants to hang with.
Yeah, right? And that's the best advice of being in a band. How do you stay in a band? Be able to hang out.
Well, yeah, and I think we grew up on those stories about the women and the cars and TV sets going out the window. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and sure you can have fun, but people don't realize it's a lot of work.
Yeah, every day we do this every day, all day long, every hour of the day. It's consumed, and I know Chip's like that too. It's always we're just that searching. We're on a quest, if you will, to find something and to progress our art, to progress our music, to get better shows, to make more money, whatever it is. We're always searching, and we're always involved in this music that influenced us. And it's like every day you get up and I'll do my hair and wake up and put on my clothes and go out, but representing the Midnight Devils, representing this rock and roll music to the world, and saying it to everybody. I'm like, last night I was a DJ. I'm a DJ at a club, and the club was really slow last night. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play all my own music, the music that I love. And it was Deep Purple, Aerosmith, all these great rock and roll bands. And I felt so proud that I was like, I think I might be the only guy at a strip club right now playing Stranger or Deep Purple. I might be the only guy in the world playing Painkiller by Judas Priest at the strip club tonight. And I think that was so cool. But it's that representation out in the world every day. This is what we are. We are rock and roll, and we love this.
Yeah, man, you really hit the nail on the head, because I think I live in an area, and this is no disparaging remark to anybody, but it's kind of there's a lot of people that do it as a hobby, so they have full-time jobs as well as and it's the classic, you're in university, man, you're really good, you should put a band together. And you see a lot of bands like that, right? Versus I go do a show on Saturday night, but I'm showing up at like noon to start setting this thing up, and it's ready to go by 4 o'clock. And it's the, all or nothing sort of mentality that people don't get, that really is what it takes to make a band move.
All right. Sorry, we froze.
That's all right. This is great. See, this is if this was live, some of my predecessors, they do live and they flip out when stuff like this happens. We can just leave this in, right? Because it's like we're giving people hope. Don't go to school.
Oh, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's rock and roll. It's supposed to be fun.
Right. Don't go to school. Be a musician. It's way more fun. So what I was saying is, I don't know how much you heard, but I live in an area where there's a lot of, you were in university and, oh, you sound pretty good, you should start a band, so people go out and play. And there's that aspect of things, which I don't want to be insulting of anybody, because there's a space for it. Versus showing up at noon and setting up and taking 4 hours and doing the show. And people don't realize when you're a band that you're all in, the amount of work that it takes.
I completely agree with you, and that's really, like, once you kind of you hit that goal, like, you remember back when you first started playing your instrument, and you remember that moment that you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. My life's been changed dramatically. I'm now going to pick this up and start doing this. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, we're going to start touring, or we're going to start taking this more seriously. And now, me personally, I'm at this point where I have pictures on my wall of Europe that we're traveling through, like, where I'm drawing Europe and drawing the little lines to the dots in the city. And it's consumed, like, my whole kitchen, this kind of world domination. To say the least, it's consumed me, but it's that goal and that push and that drive to where I can't really think of anything else, and I don't really want to think of anything else.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I really do think that in this day and age, if you're smart with, technology, if you're smart with networking, you can make a good run at any level. I mean, maybe you're Bon Jovi getting 1 billion streams, or you're, the guy that's playing a small club. But I think the opportunity is out there for people to make money at this thing.
I really do too, and I really think that it's about how hard you want to work. And going back to that question you said, the formula was written, and I always tell everybody this. We grew up, me personally, and we grew up on bands like Kiss and Van Halen and AC/DC, and what those guys did is they put out a record every year, and they went out on tour, and they hit every small city, every little podunk town, and just talk to the people. And that's what one lesson that Chip does, is that every person that he meets, he makes sure that they know he's in Enough's Enough, and that he was on MTV and he did all these things, and he has a new record out. It's really that word of mouth and how we're touching the hearts and the minds of people that we meet on a daily basis. And it goes back to that hard work, and you go out there and you tour and you work and you really push yourself to the limit, because that's what we do, and we wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, it's a mindset. I mean, I remember you mentioned something a couple minutes ago. I mean, you never remember the exact moment in time that you go from suck to good. It's
right.
I roll it in my back of my mind. When did I go from not knowing what the heck I was doing to decent? But the other side of the coin is that when I was coming up, I didn't. It's going to sound maybe egotistical. I didn't really care what the drummers in my backyard were doing. I was worried about the guys in Toronto and LA, because those are the guys I want to go up against. And I think that when you have that mindset, and it's not cockiness, it's confidence. I sit there and I interview people, and I go, okay, I'm a guy that I truly feel I've done the work that I could sit in with any of the people that I interview. And that's just, I think what makes my podcast successful is I can talk to you in a way that I know what you've gone through. I know what you're going through. I know how hard you're working. I know that, you don't sit here and have this conversation about working hard and then put your feet up and eat Frito-Lays all day long. I know the work that you guys put in.
Yeah, and it's really, we love it, and we're such a good road band. I wouldn't say a good road band. We love being on the road. We love being around each other, and we love going back. We love hanging out with each other. And the three of us as the Midnight Devils really have this outlook of it's us against the world. And we don't want to be the best band in Omaha. We don't want to be the best band in Chicago. We want to be the best band in the world. And that's a Kiss saying. And they said they didn't want to be the best band in New York. Well, we're taking, I think that taking that saying and really going up against the gatekeepers and the guys that try and keep you down or try and really charge you money to play. Like, all these people, all these obstacles, all these hurdles, it's like a big F you to everybody else. We're going to go out and do it. Whether you say yes or no, we're going to do it. We're going to be stuck in a van on the road for an entire summer. We're going to be crammed in these tiny little places, traveling our asses off, but we're going to be so happy doing it because that's what we love.
Awesome. And you know what? You caught my eye. Is that on the back wall? Is that the destroyer? Is that the blanket?
Yes, it's the blanket. Yeah.
I'm pointing over here. I get the exact same one on the wall. That's
Nice.
Hilarious. Right. But I get the destroyer underwear too. It's
I don't know if I have what did I just get? I don't think I have the underwear. Maybe. Well, are they the jockey shorts?
They're the boxers. I get the Kiss puzzle.
Oh, all right.
Because it is what, the 45th anniversary of that coming out?
Yes. And the Kiss world is a buzz this week. So
so I had Michael Brandvold on.
Oh, great. I keep running into him, and that's what I was listening to that podcast, and I think his show's great. I think he's a really nice guy and a very smart dude.
Well, so he had the scoop that Bob Kulick actually played on Alive, and everything lit up. And then Paul Stanley called him and said that he actually wasn't, but that still is apparently one of those great Snopes.com moments because people are kind of still out there believing that it may have happened. So we'll see. But Michael was pretty he was pretty honest and upfront about the fact that he wears with pride the fact that he's the world's most hated Kiss podcast.
It's great. Their podcast is great, and we listen to it on the road all the time.
Yeah.
For the fact that you pick up a lot of nuggets and a lot of bit of the way that Kiss used to do things, and I really think that going back, that is kind of an overlooked thing. Really, their business side, their tactics, and the way that they conquered the whole entire rock world as these 4 space alien, makeup-clad space aliens. I think Three Sides of the Coin really sheds a lot of light on that. And as a musician, I love listening to their stories. I love listening to what they have to say, and just kind of keeping up on the current information.
I agree. So we're a good podcast, but unfortunately, we're not a big budget podcast. We're running out of time here. So
okay,
I want to just where are my folks going to find out about what you guys are up to?
Sure. It's very simple. We are, like I said in the very beginning of this podcast, Jimmy and I grew up on punk rock. We grew up on punk rock touring bands. So everything that we grew up using, those tools that we got from playing in the worst possible bands ever, we took and we've kind of implied into the Midnight Devils. So everything we do is very in-house. TheMidnightDevils.com is our website. It has all of our links, like our streaming platforms, and it has our merch store. And every piece of merch is shipped right out of this apartment. It comes from me to you, and we have some of the most incredible artwork and art designers. We have these amazing people in our team in our corner that create just really cool stuff. And every CD goes to filling up the tank of our bus to get us out on this tour. So it's TheMidnightDevils.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we're very active. We answer every message, every comment. We're out there wherever. There's videos on YouTube, obviously Amazon Music, Apple Music, Google, everything.
Sir, thanks so much for doing this. It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll be following you, gentlemen, over the next few months.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We will be out. We kick off our summer tour supporting Loudness, the Japanese band Loudness. We kick that off May 4th, Clifton, New Jersey. It's a coast-to-coast deal, but we'll be all the way across the USA and then over into Europe all year long.
That doesn't suck. Congrats, Sammy. Talk to you soon, brother.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's a pleasure talking to you.